Yo everyone, I just wanted to say Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to you all, and welcome to my predictions and breakdown of the entire UFC Fight Night card, Royval vs Kape. This is the last card of the year, guys, so we won't be getting any more UFC for at least an entire month. So in saying that, I'm hoping this one helps us go out with a bit of a bang and into 2026 with some excitement. If you like these videos though, please leave a like, subscribe, and don't forget to turn on your notification bell so you don't miss any uploads or streams that I do. Now, before we do get into this video, I do want to remind everyone of a few things. Firstly, as a few of you already know, I've opened up a Discord for the channel. It's completely free to join, and I would love to see more of you there. I'll leave a link to the Discord in the description of this video, whoever is curious. I also want to say that I stream Fight Companions for pretty much every single UFC fight card, every single weekend. This weekend, I will be live as well for the entire main card of this event, and maybe even some of the later prelims as well. And so I would love to see more of you guys there. And lastly, if you would like to be a part of my betting guides, and for this betting guide that will come out sometime tomorrow, please leave your bets for UFC Vegas 112 in the comments below or in my Discord or Twitter X for me to see that, and I'll take one person's bet to add to the betting guide. Now guys, as for my results for last week's card, we went 8-5 on picks for UFC 323, which is not the best, and I do know that, but I actually did pick, I think, a total of 7 underdogs on this card, so I did think I did quite well, honestly, in saying that, and all the fighters that I did choose for my confident picks list did all win. As you guys can see, it's on the left side of your screen. They were Mansour Abdul-Malik and Jalen Turner. I also thought I would highlight 3 fighters that I picked outright for you guys that were underdogs on that card, and those fighters did actually end up winning their fights. They were Bruno Ferreira, Manuel Torres, and Joshua Van. Those were the underdogs that I did pick that did end up winning their fights. And even though I did just say that Joshua Van won his fight, you know, he could have won it in a different way, of course, but he is still the winner. I do hope that Pantoja makes a full recovery. When it does come down to how our bets went, here on screen all the bets I had on the card. All these bets on screen were in the betting guide that I uploaded before the card took place. I will now highlight in green all the bets that cashed, and in red all the bets that did not hit. And as you can see, we had a great night of bets, guys. We made 3.3 units of profit, and if I calculated correctly, that is a little bit over 22% ROI on the event, so I'm very happy. We've made around 11 units, I believe, of profit in the past 2 weeks, so I couldn't really be much happier, guys. I'm very happy, and I'm hoping this card is also a banger for us as well when it comes to our bets. But anyways, to finally jump into the video, I'll be starting with the prelims and working my way all the way to the main event. Timestamps are in the description and the comment section below if you guys would like to skip to any fight in particular. We're going to be starting with the first fight of the card, which is Jamey-Lyn versus Teresa Bleda. And I see some very differing opinions on this fight, guys, and most of it comes from the fact that I believe that Teresa Bleda is just better to a lot of people. I think she's quite good. She should win this fight a good amount of the time as well, but she's coming off a 2-year, I believe it's like a 2.5-year layoff now after her win against Gabriela Fernandez. So a lot of people, including myself, are just a little bit unsure about her ability going into this fight and how, like, you know, the time off will affect her here, you know, because Jamey-Lyn, she is quite tricky at times. I personally think that her striking is not talked about enough in this matchup, personally, because I do think she clearly could outdo Bleda here, in my opinion, on the feed. If she keeps her distance here and stuffs the clinch attempts and just peppers her from range, I think she could honestly do quite well. But I also do understand why Bleda is favored here. I think she's very likely to do well with her pressure grappling here. I think Jamey-Lyn can be taken down at times. I think she can also be held down and controlled in this fight too. And I think Teresa Bleda is just going to be a lot stronger, larger, and more physical than a lot of Jamey-Lyn previous opponents, at least as of recent. I also see that this fight potentially being like a closer fight, but Teresa Bleda may be pulling away in 2 of the rounds by just like getting a lot of clinch control, maybe taking down and then getting some damage on the ground, a lot of control time on the ground as well, and then winning the fight that way, but still it being a closer fight. That's what I think might happen here, guys. And something else I will also mention about Teresa Bleda is that she's very young in the game, guys. If you see how old she is, like, she beat Gabriela Fernandez. Let's mention that first. And then she did lose to Natalia Silva, but she did both of those things, I believe, as a 21-year-old, which is just crazy to fight at the level that she's fighting at as young as she is. I think she's quite solid, she's quite gritty, and I really do hope she pulls off a nice victory here, even with a long layoff. Teresa Bleda is my pick here, guys. Moving on to Alan Frye Jr. versus Guilherme Pat, if I'm saying that correctly. I hope I am. And specifically about this fight, guys, I do struggle to break it down a little bit. I'm not going to lie. Like, you guys can see, like, just from how I'm talking even right now, like, I've written this script and it's still a struggle for me. This fight sort of just reminds me of, like, the Contender Series fights that I broke down. You guys probably know that I did, like, a whole predictions and breakdown video series on this season's Contender Series, and this really feels like a Contender Series fight to me. Both their records are good, but they've just been beating on, like, absolute cans. And even if you look at Alan Frye's last opponent and you're like, oh, this guy had a decent record. I believe he was 12-3 or something like that. His name was Justin Frazier. If you actually do watch that fight, someone could have said to me, hey, look at this guy that Alan Frye's versing. He's 0-12. And I would have said, I could believe he looks 0-12, like, and the guy's actually 12-3. You know what I mean? So it's not like he was the worst fight I've ever seen, but this guy has not versed good comp. You know what I mean? Both guys have not really versed that good of comp. But still, this fight is a hard one to pick in general. Both guys are obviously dangerous on the feet. Both guys can get a KO. Both guys have decent counters as well when their opponents are coming into range. And both guys also have a bad knack for getting taken down and controlled, for sure. I believe both guys could potentially see that happening in future matchups too. But in this matchup, I don't think that's going to happen. I have a feeling that either guy is going to want to stand here and bang. But, like, in general, you could pick either or, guys. I'm going to lean towards Guilherme Pat here, personally, and I'm going to pick him to win this fight by KO. But like I said, it's a hard one to pick because, you know, both guys haven't proven that they can beat anyone near UFC level yet. And this pretty much is just a Contender Series fight, guys. To be honest with you, so it's very hard to tell if any of these guys are even really that good. But I don't think either guy is that good. If you want my personal opinion, before they've even fought many times in the UFC, I don't think either guy is that good, but I do think Guilherme Pat has a better chance to win. That's my opinion. I'm going with him by KO. Could see a decision win too. Moving on to Melissa Croden versus Luana Santos, and to be honest, this is another one that I feel is a hard one to pick, and I honestly could see this one going either way again. Talking about another fight going either way. I think initially I wasn't super impressed with Melissa Croden, but she did have a pretty exciting round 3 against Tainara Lisboa, pouring it on until she ended up getting a TKO finish in that fight. But the thing is, Luana Santos actually had an even better performance against the same opponent, subbing her inside 2 rounds. And this is just my opinion. I thought it was a better performance. And I do think Luana Santos is just a more technical fighter here, especially in the ground exchanges. I do think she's going to have the advantage there. I do think there's going to be many moments as well in this fight where they're going to be clinching and they're going to be fighting for maybe top control here. And even though Melissa Croden is bigger, she's more physical in my opinion, and overall she's probably the more physically imposing girl since she's quite muscular. I do think this fight is going to be a closer one in the end, and I just think I edged that to Luana Santos here to squeeze it out. Just because I think she's going to get some solid control here. Honestly, with her wrestling and BJJ, I just give her that slight technical edge in my mind. And I've seen a few opportunities for potential takedowns against Melissa Croden in her last fight, and I do think Luana Santos is good enough to get them here, in my opinion. And something else I've noticed about Melissa Croden, just to talk about something a little extra, guys, is that although her striking is improving, she still lunges forward just a lot with her strikes, which is just terrible to see, honestly. It might sound really bad to say, but it's bad to see. And if you go watch her last fight, you'll know what I'm talking about. She's just slower, especially as the fight goes on. She's a lot slower, and she leaves big openings when she lunges in for those strikes, and better strikers in the division are just going to catch her down the line. But I will say, something positive about her striking is that she's got a very, very nice uppercut, like a shovel uppercut. I think it's probably her best shot on the feet, in my opinion. She landed that a lot in her last fight. It was very, very good, so I hope she throws that a bit more. But anyways, guys, this is a very close one. I'm going to go with Luana Santos by decision here. Moving on to Sean Sharaf versus Stephen Asplund. I keep thinking it's Asplund, but it's Asplund. And these fights are not getting easy to predict, guys. I'm not going to lie. My initial lean was towards Stephen Asplund here, just because in my head I just visualized, like, Sean Sharaf looks like he could possibly make light heavyweight. I think the guy's a lot smaller than Stephen Asplund. And, you know, Asplund is a very big dude. Sean Sharaf might just be able to get out-muscled here. Like, in my opinion, he might be able to get put away later on, just by getting more tired, by getting out-muscled by Stephen Asplund in this fight. And, like, I might be overthinking things. Like, if I switch it around here, even though that Stephen Asplund was my initial lean, and I am thinking about those things as well, I think I'm just going to slightly lean towards the underdog here. Like, I'm going to go with a smaller heavyweight in Sean Sharaf anyway, to be honest with you guys. I think that watching the fight tape, like watching quite a bit of fight tape now, I did do that for both of them, by the way, guys. I do that for every single fight regardless. I think Sean is skill for skill just better. Like, in my opinion, I think he's better. And if he's able to land even one takedown in this fight on Asplund, I think he can finish him, honestly. I do think he can do that. Asplund is pretty much just a sitting duck if the fight gets to the ground. Like, if you watch his previous fights, I'm honestly surprised that he didn't get finished in a bunch of his other wins, to be honest. Like, if you go watch his other fights, besides his one loss to Denzel Freeman where he got subbed straight away, if you go watch back his KO win over Raiden Kovacs, I wrote his name down here, if you go watch that win, the dude literally got, I think it looked like a 10-7. Like, he almost got a 10-7 over Stephen Asplund in the first round. He was almost submitting him, ground and pounding him, almost finishing him multiple times in that first round. It was pretty much for a full 5 minutes, and it just is not a good visual, guys. I really do think that he's really not good on the ground. I think he's going to get taken down at some point in this fight. I think he's going to get either TKO'd or subbed here, maybe even in the first round. I do think both guys are very likely to gas out, though. I will say that. Even after maybe just a round or a round and a half. And if that does happen, I probably will favor Stephen Asplund here, just because his size and his reach are going to be good in that sort of scenario. But like I said earlier, I do think Sean Sharaf is just technically better. I think he showcased solid enough grappling of his own as well, even in his fight with Junior Tuffa, which he lost. I do think that sort of grappling is good enough to get him a win in this situation. And just to talk about that Junior Tuffa loss, he actually should have got a takedown in that fight early on. I think he showcased that he could get it, but there was like a massive like cage grab in there from Junior Tuffa. Like, you guys could probably see it if you watch it back. I watched it recently. It was super blatant. It was very game-changing there. But I think, yeah, guys, like I said, I think he's going to take him down. I think he's going to finish him, maybe in round 1. I'm picking Sean Sharaf as the underdog here, but it's still a very close fight, like I said. I think betting the fight here, in my opinion, maybe betting it to not go past 1.5 rounds or not start round 3 would be a solid bet here, but I think, you know, we'll see. I like betting on a lot of different things. Moving on to Neil Magny versus Yaroslav Amosov, and this one's going to be a very short pick, but I'm going to go with the newcomer in Yaroslav Amosov to win this fight, most likely by decision win, or maybe even by submission if he manages to get a good position over Magny on the ground. And the reason why I'm picking Amosov here is because I'd seen him before, I'd heard of him, I do think he's quite good. He should definitely be good enough to beat Neil Magny, even without having fought in the UFC, and I am nervous, I'm not going to lie, because Magny just upset Jake Matthews, and the dude just keeps upsetting so many solid dudes, so in no way in my head am I completely counting out Neil Magny. I'm not going to put him in my confident picks list as well. Amosov, this is, just because I am quite nervous, I'll be honest. Especially if this fight goes later, closer to the end of round like 2, or even in round 3, I feel worried if Amosov lets it get there. But I just think in the grappling, I don't see him out grappling someone like Yaroslav Amosov here at all. I think he's most likely going to go into this fight very grapple heavy himself. This is talking about Amosov, and I just see it working very well for him here. I think I've seen Magny in trouble many, many times on the ground and in grappling exchanges throughout his career, and this is someone who relies a very good deal on his own grappling in his fights. I just think Yaroslav, as far as what I've seen, like I said, guys, is just too solid on the ground, and he should be able to get through Neil Magny here. That's just my opinion, but like I said, I'll never say never. He did come back and beat Jake Matthews, which I didn't think could happen, even though there was some crazy stuff happening in that fight with an early stoppage and this and that and whatever, you know what I mean? I'm picking Yaroslav by submission. Moving on to Joanderson Brito versus Isaac Thomson, and as sad as it is to say, because this is an Aussie boy taking this fight on short notice here since Melquizael Bagdasaryan pulled out, but I think Joanderson Brito is going to win this fight a very, very solid amount of time. It's just most likely a little bit too much, too early for the young Aussie here. Even without the short notice, I think it's probably some tough matchmaking. But counting the short notice, I feel like putting it in my confident picks list, to be honest with you. Isaac Thomson is very well-rounded, don't get me wrong. Like, Joanderson Brito also does have, like, holes in his game. Like, if you wanted me to say something about Isaac Thomson, I do think, like, he could exploit some of those holes with his grappling. But when you think about this fight for Isaac Thomson, 4 days notice. He's 23 years of age. He's coming into the UFC for the first time, and you're having to face someone like Joanderson Brito who's just going to pressure you on top of the pressure of already making your UFC debut. And like you know you're going to be in a high-paced fight. I worry for him here, and I think if he goes with a grapple-heavy game plan, it's probably his best game plan he could do, and that would still be a big worry because he could be, gassing himself out in a high-paced, grapple-heavy game plan, especially early on, and he could get finished in the second or third round because of it if Joanderson Brito survives that grappling. So, guys, in the end, it's like, it just feels like I need to pick Joanderson Brito here to win this fight. I feel like he most likely wins this fight by TKO in the first or second round after maybe a couple of scrambles and some solid back and forth on the feet. I hope another Aussie pulls off an upset, though, in my opinion. I will be rooting for him. I would love it to happen. Moving on to Amanda Lemos versus Gillian Robertson. And remember this when I say it, guys. When it comes to picks and bets, they are very different to me. If I do pick the favorite in Gillian Robertson to win here ultimately, it doesn't mean that I can't see Amanda Lemos winning, or I can't see that Amanda Lemos is insane value. And I couldn't definitely see a possibility of her just like stuffing the takedowns and looking solid on the feet and maybe even getting a KO finish here. But this is all to just say that it's important to remember all this. You know what I mean? When you're placing your bets, it's not that once I pick someone, I believe they're going to win almost 100% of the time. It's just more who I believe wins maybe slightly more of the time, and it's not that I don't think Amanda Lemos would still be great value, even if you do believe Gillian Robertson wins a slight amount of the time, you know what I mean? Anyways, regardless of my rambling, I'm going to pick Gillian Robertson by decision win or potentially by finish on the ground, just because I believe that she's quite quick on the entry, she's quite persistent with her takedowns, and when the fight goes to the ground, I do think she will dominate a lot of the exchanges on the ground, but like I said, I'm worried for her if the takedowns don't work, because if the takedowns don't work, I do expect her to take a lot of damage on the feet and potentially get TKO'd here. So it's a pretty dangerous game she's going to play here, and I'm still going to pick her to win, but it's dangerous for her. We'll have to see. Gillian Robertson is the pick. Moving on to the main card now in King Green versus Lance Gibson Jr. And now this fight was just recently put on the card, guys. It was put on about a day ago, so lucky I'm almost putting this out, this video out later, because I just saw this fight like yesterday. I knew they were trying to find an opponent though for Bobby Green because he wanted to be put on the card, and now they managed to find one in Lance Gibson Jr., son of the UFC fighter Lance Gibson, and I just checked that up, by the way, guys. I keep seeing things pop up about Lance Gibson fighting. I think it was in UFC 22. So that's pretty cool. I think that's pretty cool for his son to be fighting now. And I did see a post as well when researching for this video that he was saying that his dad fought at the UFC and that he wanted his shot too, which is pretty cool. But regardless, I don't know if he does beat Bobby Green here. I feel like if you're picking Lance Gibson to win, you're probably picking him to win by KO or finish in general, either by starching Bobby Green, like I said, by KO, or potentially taking him down and finishing him on the ground somehow by submission. But when I take a look at Lance Gibson's fights, the dude has literally, I don't think he's ever versed anyone that I'd qualify as decent, in my opinion. And I watched him get caught and KO'd by one of these guys as well in the first round. But granted, that guy did have a decent record, I will say that. You know, he looks quite strong. I'll give him that. He seems decently well-rounded. I do expect him to be the more explosive guy, especially early on against Bobby Green. But like, even though Bobby Green has had a rougher stint in his career as of recent, the dude, he's also older. Like, don't get me wrong, he's also older. He's taken a lot of damage, but he's still very solid. Like, he's a solid fighter. He can cause a lot of problems for a lot of people, and unless he gets finished early, I see him most likely winning by decision here against Gibson here, getting, like, as Gibson probably gets more tired as the fight goes on, especially if Bobby Green survives early on. I just see him taking over, in my opinion. Bobby Green is going to win this fight. Bobby Green or King Green is the pick, by the way. Like, I keep saying Bobby Green just because I'm used to it, but King Green is the pick for this fight. Going to say he wins by decision, but I could potentially see a later rounds finish. Moving on to Kennedy Nzechukwu versus Marcus Buchecha, and another close one to pick, guys. There have been so many of these on the card, I'm not going to lie. But ultimately, I'm going to rely on Kennedy Nzechukwu here to get the win. I do think he wins this fight by KO a good amount of the time. I think Marcus Buchecha's pretty good. Like, if anyone thinks he's pretty good, it's probably me, because I did pick him to beat Martin Buday, even though he didn't beat him. I remember that pretty vividly. I could definitely see him doing well here, even with his wrestling and BJJ. Like, I know how good he is. That's basically the point I'm trying to make, guys. I know how good he is. He could definitely get the sub early here in this matchup, but I think he's quite slow. Like, in terms of his movement speed, I think he's quite slow, especially as the fight goes past that first round. I think he'll slow down pretty drastically, and I do think if it does enter the second and third rounds, like I said, I'd much rather be the guy who picked Kennedy Nzechukwu than the guy who picked Buchecha here, because I don't see Buchecha landing many takedowns past that first round. Kennedy Nzechukwu is my pick. I'm going to go with him by KO, maybe inside the first 2 rounds. Moving on to Melquizael Costa versus Morgan Charriere, and this doesn't surprise me at all, seeing this one even in odds. This one's a really tricky fight to pick. I think I'm slightly leaning towards Morgan Charriere here, in my opinion, and it's mostly because I do think I can see him potentially mixing in some well-timed takedowns in this fight, and potentially being the decider here. Like, that sort of mixing in of the takedowns is probably going to be the decider here in this ultimately close fight. But Melky's a hard dude to fight, guys. Like, he's quite solid everywhere. He's probably a better grappler than a striker, in my opinion, but he really is well-rounded now. He's improved a lot in recent years. He's very strong. He's got very fast kicks as well. But I do think Morgan is still very solid, and I expect him to look good in the pure boxing exchanges here in this fight. I think kicks-wise, both guys do have very, very nice kicks, but I would give Melky sort of the advantage there. I think his kicks are a bit quicker, he's snappier, so I'd give him the edge, but like, and something else I do want to mention is that he'll also have the height and reach advantage here, so I do worry about how well Morgan will deal with the kicks at range, or deal with range in general, but this one is just one of those guys where I feel like if you pick either or, it's still fine. Like, it's not a bad pick either or. I could see an argument for picking either guy here. Like, clearly, like, a lot of these fights are close here. But I am going to go with Morgan Charriere here to win this one by decision, most likely. Moving on to the feature fight of the card now in Cesar Almeida versus Cezary Oleksiejczuk. And this one's a tricky one because everything in me, from my initial lean to the value side of me, was thinking and telling me to take Cesar Almeida here all day, because the dude's proven himself so far in the UFC. He's knocked out Dylan Budka, and most recently he's knocked out Abdul Razak Al Hassan. On top of that, he also has beaten Ior Peteria by decision, and he did lose that split decision to Roman Kopylov, which has not aged the best, actually. Even though it was impressive at the time, it's not aged the best since Kopylov's on a bit of a skid now. But the moral of the story is that Cesar Almeida is solid, and for him to be a plus 180 underdog right now at the time of recording this video, it's crazy to me. It seems like perfect value for a lot of people here. I do, however, think that this is going to be a bit of a scrappier fight, in my opinion. I think it's going to be scrappy in the first round. I think someone's going to win by KO here as well. which is crazy to say since both guys haven't, like, they've never lost by KO. Even though they've got so many KOs, they've never lost themselves by KO. And Cesar Almeida has versed Alex Pereira 3 times, and he's not been KO'd, guys. So that seems crazy in of itself, you know. And something else I do think is important to mention is that I feel like I need to give the definite speed and mobility edge to the younger Oleksiejczuk here. I think he's clearly more explosive going in and out of range. I think you guys can see that when you see Cesar Almeida fight as well. He almost looks like a little bit stationary. Like if you watch him fight, he sort of looks like Pereira a little bit, honestly. Like the way he moves forward as well. He's got like that upright posture. He's got a more squared stance to his opponents as well. He sort of does that sort of thing, guys. But he's a lot slower than Pereira. He's a lot slower than a lot of guys. He still has very nice kicks. Obviously a lot of power as well in his hands and a decent ability to counter, but I just think he's slowing down quite a bit at 38 years of age. And I also think that Roman Kopylov, even when tired, had a lot of success mixing in the takedowns, and I'm sure Oleksiejczuk will have opportunities where he can do that as well and have a lot of success with that. And I also think that doing so would be to his advantage massively, of course. And something else I'd even like to add is that even though Cesar Almeida did have a first-round KO over Hassan recently, which is for sure very impressive, it was a super shaky performance, guys. Like, if you go back and watch that fight, he was getting outsped, he was getting outdone initially, even by Al Hassan, in my opinion, allowing big shots through a lot, and getting dropped and rocked early on in that first round. And I do think, personally, this is just my belief, I do think it's because of a major lack of MMA experience, but on top of that, it's because of a major, like, not lack of experience, but a major experience in kickboxing. And what I mean by that is because, you know, when you're boxing or kickboxing, you have a lot of tendencies, similar to just fighting in general, but tendencies that might be not as good for MMA. And what I mean by that is that you can cover yourself up. You can guard yourself, which is, of course, good. You'd rather have your hands up than down, but the gloves are a lot smaller, guys, and so many different punches and kicks get through the guard in MMA compared to other combat sports. Like, punches even land, like, right on the ear, behind the ear, just because the gloves are so small. So it benefits to have good mobility along with a good guard, in my opinion, a good high guard. So even though I feel like I'm rambling, I probably don't have as much experience or anywhere near as much knowledge as like these professional fighters. I'm just saying that I do personally believe that can be a bad tendency if you're not someone who moves their feet a lot. And even though I do believe Almeida is really good value here, I think that Cezary Oleksiejczuk here is going to have the attributes to do well against him here. And I also think he will be one, like I said, to mix in the takedowns. If someone decides to do it, it will be him. Like, you know, it will be him. And I think he's just going to do pretty solid on the ground, in my opinion, if he decides to take it there. So that's my prediction, guys. Cezary Oleksiejczuk is the pick here. I'm going to lean towards potentially a KO or a finish in general, maybe by taking him down and finishing him on the ground, but he could even get it on the feet. With the way Abdul Razak Al Hassan rocked him, it wouldn't surprise me. Moving on to the co-main event here now, Giga Chikadze versus Kevin Vallejos. And I'm just going to say it outright here, I've been very, very hype on Kevin Vallejos for a while. I even remember highlighting him as one of the better boxers inside the UFC in general and inside the featherweight division ages ago, guys. And believe me, I do think he's going to put on a solid performance here against Giga Chikadze here. I'm going to pick him to win this fight. I'm going to pick him outright here. I think he wins it by decision a good amount of the time. And if he does get a KO, I believe it's probably going to be later because Giga Chikadze usually looks quite good early on. He tends to slow down after that first round. I just feel quite confident in Kevin Vallejos, guys. Like, when I look at Giga has shown that he can be controlled on the ground, and I do think Kevin has shown a solid ability himself to mix in the takedowns when he needs to, and it would be to his such to his benefit here if he was to mix him in this fight. And especially early on, because Giga's so dangerous in that first round in terms of his speed and his kicking power. But ultimately, regardless of what Kevin does, I just do think he's going to have a lot of success here in this fight. And I just think everything's just going on the way up for Kevin Vallejos here. And for Giga, it's sort of the opposite. Like, Giga's just getting older. He's lost 2 in a row now. And he's just facing like a young, hungry dude whose only loss is to Gene Silva by decision. And Gene Silva is arguably like one of the most technical and dangerous strikers in the division, inside the UFC in general, even after losing to Diego Lopez. I don't want to hear it, guys. Like, everyone saw how Gene Silva was piecing up Diego Lopes before he got overexcited hunting for that finish in that fight, getting spinning elbowed himself by Diego Lopes. The dude's a talent, and he is very tricky for anyone to handle, and Kevin Vallejos was super, super young when he versed Gene Silva. My only maybe concern here in this fight is probably the high kicks of Giga early on in that first round. But apart from that, I feel quite confident, guys. I feel like Kevin Vallejos is going to get the win here, most likely by decision. Could see a later rounds TKO. Moving on to the main event of the evening out now, though. Brandon Royval versus Manel Kape. And I have to go with my gut here and pick Manel Kape to win this one. And personally, I keep visualizing the knockout in my head. Even though like Brandon Royval is going to be a hard dude to knock out. He's very durable. I just keep visualizing it, so I'm going to pick him to win by KO as well, even though decision, like I said, is probably more likely here. I do really just think that Manel is so difficult to deal with when purely fighting him on the feet. He's also one of the hardest hitting flyweights on the roster too, and on top of that, he's got some very, very solid footwork and can move forwards and backwards and still manage to catch you with something big no matter what direction he's moving in. I think it's just going to be a hard one for Brandon Royval to deal with here, personally. I think he's potentially going to look good, maybe, in moments here in this fight. Like he always pushes forward. He always, like, tries to do well with his pressure. But I think, you know, I just think Manel Kape's going to cause him a lot of trouble here with his style. I think he's going to even overwhelm him at some points here in exchanges. Whilst, like, Royval's trying to overwhelm him with volume, I think Kape's going to overwhelm him with timing and precision and just, like, landing the more damaging shots. And with Brandon Royval also coming off that decision loss to the new champ, Joshua Van, and losing really just because he got rocked in the third round and dropped there, I think Manel's going to be looking to hurt him here again. I think he's going to see that fight and think he can put him away for good here, and I believe he will put him away here as well. And I was close to putting this in my confident picks list as well, guys, but I just think I can't count out Brandon Royval fully. He's just so solid, and Manel loves to foul. Like, don't get me wrong, I actually don't like Manel. Like, I'll be honest with you guys, I don't like Manel Kape. I've seen too many fouls from him. I hated what he did in the Asu Amabaya fight. I fucking hated it. I'm not going to lie. So I'm sort of rooting against him here. And I also wouldn't be surprised at a fucking DQ loss for him with the amount he's been fucking fouling and going for eye pokes and stuff. So I'm still going to pick him to win this fight because I do think as a fighter, he's just so solid. He's so fast. He's so powerful as well. But that's pretty much it, guys. I'm probably rooting for Brandon Royval, though. That's my prediction for the main event, and that wraps up my full cards prediction and breakdown for the entire UFC Fight Night Royval vs. Kape fight card. And if you guys have any thoughts or any questions for me regarding the card or anything else in general, you guys can put any questions for me in the comments. Feel free to leave a comment, and I will do my best to respond to every single comment left in the comment section below. Thanks for watching, guys, and see you guys next time.